Welcome back, my Pixel fanatics, and I got another video today that was inspired by C. Scott Brown. And if you guys don't know who that is, go ahead and plug in his name into the YouTube search and find his channel, and definitely subscribe. Um, I do see some of the things that he goes through, and I kind of want to address that in this video with my own take on what he did in a recent video called, the Pixel Hate. And so, yeah, before I get into that, let me just first say thank you guys so much for the support, man. We are at 47 subscribers and we are 3 away from 50, which allows me to basically go live from my mobile phone. So that's going to be a really big milestone for me on this channel. Thank you guys so much. Like, I get it. Some people ask, why did I separate, Pixel content from my main channel, which has like 14,000 subscribers. But let me just say this, like, I still make content on that channel. I still talk about the broader scope of this, which is mobile technology. And this channel is just more refined down to just Pixel content, where I can just primarily focus on Pixel news. So like, yeah, there'll be some Pixel videos on my main channel, but a lot of them are going to be on this channel. So, if you're subscribed to both, thank you guys for doing so much. If you found this channel, you don't know about my other one, you want to check it out, go ahead. I'll put the link in the description. You guys can check it out. But thank you guys for getting me to 47, and we are on our way to 50. And once we hit 50, then we're going to be on our way to 100. And it's just so exciting. The growth of YouTube is just amazing. But anyways, guys, getting into everything, let's talk about this whole ordeal with that video that I was referring to, where, a lot of the Pixel hate was highlighted and it was addressed. So I'm not going to try to do the same things in that context, but there's one area that I'm primarily focused on when it comes down to it. One of the things that people say is a negative about, Pixels and like the Pixel 10, and that is the cameras. That's one area that I do want to talk about in this video, is the cameras. And a lot of people want to question why the downgrade, right? So, for the most part, basically, I just, I have these pulled up here for you guys, and we're going to go down all the way to, I want to say the camera specs. So this is what we're going to be looking at. Here we go. Camera specifications here. Okay. So you have the Pixel 9 on the far right, the Pixel 10 in the middle, and the Pixel 10 Pro on the far left. Okay. So yeah, everything right here, Pixel 10 Pro, everything here, Pixel 10, everything here, Pixel 9. All right, so let's look at it, right? Let's look at from the Pixel 9 to the Pixel 10, right? So the main camera sensor on the Pixel 9 is a 50 megapixel shooter. And then on the Pixel 10, it's a 48 megapixel shooter. And people are like, oh my God, it dropped. It dropped down. And you know what? Yeah, it dropped down. No one's wrong about that. That's an honest observation. But why did it drop down? And that's where the Pixel 10 Pro comes in. Then I think that, like when people are thinking about the camera comparisons between the previous Pixel 9 and then the Pixel 10, and they kind of forget this guy right here, the Pixel 10 Pro. When you look, the Pixel 10 Pro and the Pixel 9 have the same main camera shooter, 50 megapixel, f1.68 aperture rating, 82 degree field of view, right? Pixel 10 has 82 degree field of view, but it's got an f1.7 aperture and a 48 megapixel main sensor, right? So people are like, why the downgrade? Okay, I'm about to make this make sense, so don't worry. Don't tell me to make it make sense. I'm about to, right? They all three have an ultra wide. However, again, the Pixel 10 downgraded the ultra wide from a 48 megapixel ultra wide down to a 13 megapixel ultra wide. Okay, and also the f2.2 aperture is different from the 9's f1.7. And it's got a 120 degree field of view instead of 123 degree field of view. Again, the camera specifications for the Pixel 9's ultra wide match with the ultra wide on the 10 Pro. And then here's where it gets interesting, right? The Pixel 9 has no telephoto sensor. The Pixel 10 has a 10.8 megapixel telephoto. And then you have a 48 megapixel telephoto. So this right here should have already made sense for you if you are really paying close attention as to why the Pixel 10's cameras have downgraded. And really, to be honest, let's say the Pixel 10 had the 50 megapixel shooter from the Pixel 9. And let's say it had the 48 megapixel ultra wide from, the Pixel 9. And they added a 10.8 megapixel telephoto sensor. So they kept the same telephoto sensor as we have right now, but just the ultra wide and the main wide angle sensor, it was updated back to the previous models, which would then match the 10 Pro. Now, let me ask you guys this question. If it had a 50 megapixel main, a 48 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10.8 megapixel telephoto, do you think there really is now a justifiable reason of what? Does it like $200 difference between the 10 Pro and the 10? Seriously. Absolutely seriously. Is there? Is there does $200 seem fitting that would be the difference, right? Because everything else is pretty much nearly the same. The dimensions of the device are the same. The weight is nearly the same. Sure, the battery capacity is different by a little bit, not all too much. But now we're talking about cameras. You probably are thinking it now, right? If the Pixel 10 had a 50 megapixel main, a 48 megapixel ultra wide, and then added the 10.8 telephoto, then there really wouldn't be anything justifiable to basically say, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go for like the Pixel 10 Pro as an upgrade for the amount of money that is differed between the Pixel 10 and the 10 Pro. And that's the point that I'm really trying to put with this, right? Like nobody likes to hear anything is downgraded. Nobody does. It's in our nature as humans, right? We don't want less. We want more. That's the key trigger that gets everybody to sign up with these weird deals and trade-ins and contracts, is because they feel like they're getting more. That's hardwired into us. We want more. So anytime that we look at something and on paper it says it gave less, we automatically go to that negative space in our head and draw from that to analyze all this, where we really shouldn't be going to that extent when it comes down to this. And by the look of it, regardless if the Pixel 10's cameras were slightly reduced down from the Pixel 9 cameras, it does kind of make sense now when you look, and the Pixel 10's price, was what, $799, and then the Pixel 10 Pro is $999 starting out. Right? It's a $200 difference. $200 difference. I'm sorry, there's no way anyone can make it ever possible in my head to say that a 10.8 megapixel to a 48 megapixel telephoto sensor would be a difference of $200. Simple. I mean it. So this is why I understand why the camera sensors were degraded down. It's not because we needed to make room for a telephoto sensor. I don't know why everyone kind of goes towards that. I mean, the 10 Pro has a triple camera setup and it has higher camera sensors compared to the Pixel 10, right? So you can't really feed me on that. Well, it needed space for a telephoto. Like, no, that's not it. They gave a telephoto because they wanted to give more than what other companies are doing, right? Like every other company does and focuses primarily on something that makes their phones pretty much like stand out, if we're going to be honest about things. At the end of the day, right? So like this year, this past year with the Pixel 10 launch came the iPhone 17 launch, which started at a base model of 256 gigs, right? And everyone was like ranting and raving about it. Like, oh my God, we got more storage. Primarily focused on the fact that they're starting off with more storage. Instead of 128, they moved up to 256 starting out. And everyone's like losing their mind over it. But I mean, when you think about it, if cameras was such a big concern, because some of these people, I see them in other comments about the Pixel 10 and they're primarily focused on cameras. So if camera is the most important thing, then why is the 17 getting a pass? Because 256 gigs trumps the fact that it doesn't have a telephoto sensor. You see what I'm saying? Like every carrier does something and loses something, right? iPhone 17 wins. Why? 256 starting out. Pixel 10, 128 gigs starting out. Pixel 10 loses on that battlefront. Okay, cool. Cameras. Pixel 10 gives you 3 camera setups without needing to buy the Pro model. iPhone 17 still only gives you 2 camera sensors. If you want 3, you got to buy Pro. Okay, this is where Pixel 10 takes the win on that. Okay, you get the playfulness of a triple camera setup, regardless if you go with the base model or with the Pro models, you're getting that. The only time you're really seeing where there is no triple camera setup is with their budget flagship, the A series, which continues to only do a wide angle and an ultra wide angle. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, especially for those in the world of wanting to take photos, which is what the Pixels were known for when they first came out. That was the thing they always targeted on, was the ability to take photos with the Pixel and have a great looking photo. And now that we have AI implementations coming in the form of Gemini, These photos that we take are getting even better. I use 20 times zoom on my Pixel 10 and it is amazing. I know if I shot directly with just a sensor with no help at all whatsoever, the photos would be trash. Okay, but that's the limitation. That's the limitations of the hardware. And the software is where the magic is at, and it's always been about software. Google computational photography. That's a software thing where it just takes your photo and just brightens it up. And not in the form of like making it bright, but what I mean is that it cleans it up. It makes it look good. In areas that, looked a little weird or whatever, it's smart enough to know what would be there. And it creates that in a natural way that when you look at the photo, it's natural looking. And that's the amazing part of taking photos with a Pixel. Okay, so that's one of the first things I wanted to talk about in this video. And the second thing is the Pixel exclusive features. People kind of like always poke at it like, why is there exclusive features, that and eventually make its way to other Android devices? And like the simplest thing that I can say this is like the overall thing is Android. Okay, that's Google's. And so of course they would want companies like Samsung and Motorola to have access to some of these things that we first see, right? Like Pixels are usually the first that get these features, and then it rolls out to older Pixels and other Android devices. But let me tell you something, as a person who really uses Google Pixels, this is how I can tell if someone just uses it for a couple of weeks to review versus someone who uses it by choice as their daily driver device. I've been using Pixels for a long time now, okay? And one thing I can tell you guys is that things like Magic Eraser, which I'm going to use for this example, Magic Eraser works on the Google Pixel phone, and it works really good. And I've used Magic Eraser on other devices, non-Pixel, and it works for the most part. But I will tell you this, Magic Eraser for photos works way better on a Pixel than it will on, a Samsung, okay? Oh no, he poked the bear and hit Samsung. I don't care. That is the truth. You could talk about, well, the processor chip in the Samsung from Qualcomm is so much powerful to the tensor that it would actually blow the tensor out of the water doing it. Look, what's written down on a piece of paper, not real world, okay? I'm not going to say that Samsungs would never process things faster than a Pixel. Yeah, there's always that off-the-wall chance it happens. Just like there's always that off-the-wall chance that the Pixel performs better on a game than a Samsung. Doesn't mean that like every single time it is that way. The end of the day is that when I use Magic Eraser on a Pixel, it just works better. And what I mean is like you circle something, you get rid of it. I do it on a Samsung, I do it on a Motorola, and most of the time it gets it right. Sometimes you get like this little like swash of color, right? Like the photo is actually a watercolor painted image, and someone accidentally brushed their elbow against the wet paint and created a swash effect. And that happens from time to time. Does that happen on my Pixel? Maybe once or twice. Majority of the time, no. Majority of the time, it executes flawlessly. Flawlessly natural looking and just erasing people and erasing objects in a photo. Because I've become so spoiled to the whole Magic Eraser thing that I no longer sit there and wait for the perfect opportunity to snap a family photo when we're out and about. I can care less who's in the background because I'm just going to eliminate them out of the photo later on post-processing. So, those features like that, call screening works way better on my Pixel than it does on my Samsung. And I could download the Google Dialer app and enable all that spam blocking, and it does it for the most case. But the call screening that I get on Pixel, out of this world, so much better. So yes, there are features that trickle down. And that's what makes me always think about these reviews that talk about it, like Pixel should only make these exclusive. Why are they sharing it with other Android devices? They're sharing the base concept of the idea, but all the actual smart, intelligent parts of it, that's mainly on Google. Spam protection, better on Google than other Android devices. Call screening, better on Pixel than on other Android devices. I'm just saying. Hold for me, I have it on my Pixel. I don't have it on my other Android devices. They don't have the hold for me set up or anything like that. And I looked in settings. Okay, so there are some features that are only going to be Pixel eccentric because they are for Pixels. And yeah, so it doesn't hurt to share some of those cool features to non-Pixel devices because people like what they like. And that's the overall thing at the end of this that I really want to highlight is that people like what they like. This channel, my videos, is never intended to say you have to like the pixels like I do. No. But for people who really want to understand what a pixel is without hearing it from like, I don't want to say super biased because I'm biased on pixels here on this channel. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I am. I will call a spade, but I mean, at the end of the day, I gotta rep pixels for what they really are. So it's not really about glorifying pixels to say that, they're always going to be better than every other device out there. No, but I don't feel like that other channels give it a fair shake in that context. If you guys catch my drift, I feel like that the bias shown in other reviews of pixels comes from a point where they always look at the pixel as the gimpy little weakling on the football field that's going to get crushed. And they never really see it that it's that one player on the field that's intelligent and definitely can come in MVP. But it is for certain people. It's not for everybody. Just like a Samsung's not for everybody. iPhones are not for everybody. Pixels are not for everybody. And that's the problem today. Is you got to stop holding the standard that the only way pixels will be considered to be a contending brand in the smartphone game if they're meant for everybody, because then you're just lying to everybody because you damn well know Apple and Galaxy are not for everybody and never have been for everybody. So Pixel should be held to the same standard as their competitors. They're not meant for everybody. They're cool as shit. They're fun to have, and they got amazing cool features. But that's only if you're looking for those things and you appreciate that. If you have all Apple ecosystem, stick with it. Samsung ecosystem, stick with it. You want a processor chip that's got, 50% more power that you'll never ever use? Go Samsung. You want an intelligent chip? Go Tensor. You want a chip that is efficient and performs good as well, but is non-Android side? Go Apple. They're all good in their own rights. That's the truth behind all of it. Every one of these phones are good in their own rights, and they all are weak in areas that the other one is not weak in. That's the whole triangle mess thing here. So you just got to figure out which one resonates with exactly what you're looking for out of a smartphone or comes close to that in order to say, okay, Pixel is good or Pixel is bad. But, like I said, I'm not here to tell everyone they have to choose Pixel. And I will never sit here and make a video on this channel that you do not buy Samsung or do not buy Apple, because I think that's corny as hell. I would never tell people to not buy something just because I don't like it. That's my personal opinion. And this is the reason why that another comment that inspired me to make this video came up was someone that posted, this is the reason why that viewers today really don't listen too much to content creators here like myself. Because there's too many of us that have crossed that line, that boundary, and now all of a sudden we're telling people what they should buy and what they shouldn't buy, which is corny as hell. You'll never get that from me. I promise you guys that. You'll never get that from me. You'll always hear, in my opinion, I wouldn't get this. But that's, again, you got to look at it and frame it of how I said it. I wouldn't get it. Doesn't mean you can't get it. I'm always a firm believer in buying what makes you happy. Because it's your money. You worked for it. It's yours. Who am I to tell you what you should buy? I only tell you what the pixels can do. So that way, if it's something that seems like, hey, it's something you want to give it a shot, you're finally going to pull the trigger and go in on it. At least, you have someone that knows about them and has told you about it. That's the whole entire point of this channel. And the fact that I think that Google Pixels are fucking cool.